Thank you, Helen, and hello everybody. It's absolutely lovely to be here. I've been in this room before, and I remember when I put up this slide, there was nearly an outcry because my first slide has the Kilkenny GAA. It didn't go down too well. The horse and jockey the last time I was here. You seem like a much friendlier bunch in class like 2 years ago. So, yeah, and I'm delighted to be here today because I just, maybe to put myself somewhat in context with what's happening here today, I've been running an initiative on News Talk called Winning Back the High Street, where over the last 3 or 4 months we've taken the radio show on the road and we've gone to Galway, to Drogheda, to Limerick. 2 weeks ago we were in Carlow, and the final show of the series takes place on Saturday week in my hometown of Dunleary, and I'll come back to Dunleary in a second because it's one of the sort of case studies I want to talk to you about here. Just a small bit about me, and I'm not here to talk about me, but I am a proud Kilkenny man. I did work on the oil rigs. I didn't train as a chef. I actually I studied catering management in Calbrew Street, and I managed to bullshit my way onto an oil rig and tell them I was the best chef that they never had when I was at a rugby match over in Edinburgh one weekend, and the guy said, well, you're in, and off it went. That's how it went. And I worked there for 2 years. Then I went to Canada and the States with the same company actually, and I worked in catering and in large places like Croke Park type equivalents, the C&E Stadium in Toronto and some of those places, again all in catering. Then I worked with Bewley's for almost 13 years, and then in 1998 I went out on my own and I opened my first shop in a basement underneath Laura Ashley in Grafton Street. Totally undercapitalised, turned £56 the first day, nearly went bust twice, 3 times, managed to walk the line, and and then I borrowed more money when I was already in a hole with the first shop to open the second shop. I had 4 young kids at the time. I was actually 38 years of age, so I wasn't a kind of a new entrepreneur in that sense. So, and I worked doggedly at it, and I built it up bit by bit. And I was saying to somebody earlier that, in business, I believe that there's a period of time, and it doesn't have to last forever, but there's a period of time in the early days where the business has to take precedence over everything else, over family, over social life, and it's only by really, really getting dug in that you will actually come out the other side. And you can still fail after doing all that, but luckily I got my business to about 6 shops actually, and I still was just about making ends meet, and then I decided that I much prefer to be a smaller part of something bigger. So effectively 3 companies came together, and mine, which was called Perk, Insomnia, which was a competitor of mine, started off on almost at the same time as me. They had 6 shops, and there was a third company called Bendini and Shaw, which was a sandwich making business that had shops in Stephen. So we ended up with 17 shops. We called them all Insomnia, and we now have 80 shops. And we sell about 10 million cups of coffee a year, 26 million turnover. We employ over 300 people. Fair trade has been one of the bedrocks of what we do. We're 100% fair trade since 2005. And I heard one of the previous speakers mentioning Starbucks earlier. They'll talk about fair trade. It's probably about 3% of their coffee, but they will tell you that they are fair trade. I believe if you embrace something like that, you've got to be 100% or nothing. So that's something that, and I've been out to Nicaragua, to Africa, in Kenya, Tanzania, where our coffee beans are grown, and if you saw the effort and work that goes into harvesting even 1 bean of coffee, you'd actually never drink anything else. And it's not a charity. All it does is provide a benchmark where people are rewarded a fair price for growing the crop. So that's just a slight aside. Our coffee's roast to order, so we only roast it when it's ordered from the shops. And this partnership that we have, and I'm a huge believer in partnerships at every level, be it in business, be it in community, be it in anything, that our partnership with Spar and Mace has given us another 200 outlets across the country. Not far from here in Junction 14 on the M7, there's a Spar, there's a Supermax, there's an Insomnia, and there's a Texaco filling station, and it's turning over more than €500,000 a year, and it's because it's providing a need. It's clean, it's well run. You can get in, you can get out, and you know, often things are successful because they operate to a particular standard, but it's also in the right place. It's halfway between, it's before the toll bridge, it gets all the Cork traffic, all the Limerick traffic, all the Kerry traffic, and 2 ways to Dublin. So it's just an example of a place that's, you know, absolutely doing really well. Now, I just want to talk a little bit about, in our growth in Insomnia, what's recent. We opened 12 shops last year, and what's interesting is that most of our growth now is in communities, i.e. not so much on the Grafton Streets, the Bagot Streets, the Patrick Streets in Cork, Shop Street in Galway, but more in suburban areas that are mainly residential. So we opened a shop recently in Dean's Grange, we're opening one in Sutton, and this we find is actually where you actually go to the community rather than the community coming to you. And I think the other thing about this, and I'll make no bones about it, where we opened in Clontarf on Vernon Avenue, there's no competition there. There's no Starbucks, there's no Costa, so you can actually get in and, I won't say own the market, because you never own the market unless you do a decent job, but you can actually develop a much stronger business in those kind of suburban hinterlands than you can actually on the high street. I'm going to talk more about the high street in just a second. The first thing I'd say to you is, what do we want as a society? Now, I was interested to hear the conversation this morning, and I'm absolutely abhorred by what I see happening, and it's happening before our very eyes. We sleepwalked ourselves into a situation that has already happened in the UK, where you have villages with absolutely no commercial entities, no pub, no guard station, no post office, no shop, not even a solicitor's office. They've even given up the ghost. So you've got these conurbations of housing that have no services, and everybody has to have a car, everybody has to drive somewhere to get what they need. And I see this trend that we've almost replicated here in Ireland. I think the town centres are absolutely dying on their feet. As I say, my experience and it was interesting, we started in Galway, and that was probably the best place that we saw in relation to the retail mix. And I'm sorry I'm talking maybe about cities here and bigger towns, but they're relevant to what's happening here today in my view. In Galway you had a situation where everybody was working as a team, i.e. the local Gardaí, the council, the retailers, the students' union, anybody who had an interest in the actual facility, which was the Galway city centre, was involved. And I think that's the first thing, that if we go on a tangent, if we go on a crusade, unless everybody is with you, you're absolutely, it's going to be treble the effort, and it may not even be worth the effort because you may not get there. Helen said it earlier, and I actually subscribe to this view as well. There's a huge personal responsibility around this. A huge personal responsibility about, we heard, again I'll go back to my own hometown where I'm going to talk about in a second, but Marks and Spencer's in Dunleary, they pull down the shutters. They say, sorry, we're moving out of here because it isn't a viable business proposition for us. You can go to Blackrock, which is 4 miles down the road. We'll be shop there if you like. Everybody's bitching and moaning, and all the people that were bitching and moaning are the people who never went to Marks and Spencer's on Patrick Street in Dunleary. So I think there is a huge onus on us as individuals. I also think that because, and let's face it, we've made a lot of mistakes here, and I would have to say that it's my view that sort of money is kind of the root of the evil in one sense, whereby county councils are forced to collect monies. The only way that they can collect easy money is to slap levies on developments, selling land to developers. It becomes a big merry-go-round that means that planning, councils, developers are all working against what I would suggest is in the best interest of the consumer. And I think that's what we have in a lot of towns around the country. There was a situation, I think, in Cavan where the council actually sold a piece of land right in the middle of the city centre to Tesco. And then they wonder why they can't collect rates off all the traders in the town, and they've actually sold out and this is happening. It's happening at a scale that's absolutely frightening. Let me bring you on to Dún Laoghaire, and as I say, next Saturday we're going to be having our show from there, and it's already sold out. I already got, and it's amazing, I had a county manager from Dún Laoghaire ringing me during the week, you know, and there seems to be a lot of nervousness. Dún Laoghaire is bigger than Limerick in terms of its so it's a big population in South Dublin. What's actually happened is that all the development has come onto the seafront, which is where, you know, it's obviously it's a beautiful place to live, but the one back from the seafront, which is George's Street, the main shopping street, and I live at one end of that, down by the People's Park. And from where I live, at one end of George's Street to the other end, which is anchored by a Tesco, believe it or not, there are 106 vacant shops. And this is not a period of, this is probably 300-400 yards. And there are 106 vacant shops, 30 of which are in the shopping centre, which is right in the middle of it. You then have a situation where Dunn's owned a huge piece of property along maybe 100 yards of it. They've closed up, so there's this big gap. And we have a situation where it's absolutely dying on its feet. And all those things that were discussed this morning are actually happening there. One good shop closes down, footfall goes down, and it's just a domino effect. And what people blame the actual demise of Dún Laoghaire on places like Dundrum and the park up in Cabinteely. And this is one of the key, again, sleepwalking things that we do. We try and compete with somewhere like Dundrum, which we're never going to compete with. So I think that battle is already lost. That if you want to compete with probably the most successful shopping centre in the British Isles is Dundrum. The other thing about Dundrum is that the centre manager there, Don Nugent, he only wants Nike, he only wants world brands. So he's not interested in he's probably not even interested in insomnia. So the only way you can differentiate or compete against something like that is to do something different. So there's 106 empty units. Many of them could be either bought or leased for a song, but it gives the opportunity to do something unique. On the high street, that's the great thing about it, that it's a place you can do what you want, and as long as you can, as long as you can get customers, coming into it, you will survive. But it's a decimation. There's a library built on, which isn't quite open yet, 40 million euros, not 50 yards from George's Street in Dún Laoghaire. They've spent 40 million euros on a library when we had a perfectly good library there on Carnegie Road. So if that 40 million could have been spent on the actual high street in Dún Laoghaire, even if they kept even if they had kept the facades, and this is one of the things that we're actually looking at, that if you can, there's too much retail space now in Dún Laoghaire. So for me, just make it shorter, make it smaller, because there's nothing like it's like having a restaurant, you know, that you have 100 seats and you've only 2 people in it, and everybody's looking in the window, and you're advertising the fact that you're empty and people don't go in. So if the area is too big, you've got to contract it and make it smaller. The other thing that places need is that they need more than just shops. You need pubs, you need restaurants, you need things that are more than about shopping. They're more things that will provide ancillary services, things that will give a place life. You also need people living in the area. So you need, I think students are probably the best example, and you hear people giving out about them. I think they're probably the greatest boost to any economy is to have a bunch of students in an area. They bring vitality, they've got energy, okay, they might play loud music and be up late, so what? They're revitalising the place. So I think, and interesting now, on Saturday week on the show, what we're going to do is, I've got a whole load of guests lined up and get people who are interested in Dún Laoghaire. Bob Geldof famously said, and he's from Dún Laoghaire, he said the only good thing that ever came out of Dún Laoghaire was the mailboat to Holyhead. That was his parting words as he went off to join the Boomtown Rats. People like Christy Moore live in the area. We're going to look at getting the lady Marie McGovern from the Kildare Outlet Centre and say, listen, if you had Dún Laoghaire, what would you do? And this is one of the things that places have to be treated like shopping centres. And in a shopping centre, they've got the wonderful dynamic that there's one guy in charge, he's coordinating all the things, and he's a committee of one. On a high street, you've got 50 different interests, 50 different businesses, but you've got to work at the same way. You've got to look at the retail experience. Is the place safe? Is it clean? Is it vibrant? Is there interesting things to buy? And that's why I think the mindset needs to change absolutely exponentially. I'm of the view, and again, rather than just talking about problems, let's look at some solutions. I would be of the view, and again, this is part of this whole council. As long as somebody parks legally, i.e. they don't double park, they don't park somewhere dangerous, or they don't obstruct general traffic, I would be of the view that we've got to just say parking is free, end of. That's it. It's over. If you can go out to 2 miles out the road, as somebody said earlier, so if we want to compete, and too bad with the council. So in Dún Laoghaire, again, I'm sorry to be talking so parochially here, there's 6 to 10 traffic wardens working like the Gestapo, walking up and down the streets. If you get out of your car to go in and buy a pint of milk, the guy would have a ticket on outside. Now, to me, that's absolutely crazy. So you're straight away saying to somebody who, please don't come here, please don't shop here. So I would be of the view, and I don't care where the councils get the money. They just have to find another revenue stream. But free parking has to be free in any urban centre. So that's number one. Number two is about rates. And I think there's a lot of, and again, this is the other council's dilemma. All the things they have to collect, it's their sources of income, are where all the problems are. So, they need rates. They need rates to run their business, to fix, to fix the sewers, the street lighting. The rates are needed, and I don't have a problem with rates. But I think rates should really be relative to the business that's there. Because you need to be a mathematician or a scientist to work out the actual genealogy of what the calculation of rates are in different towns across the city. There seems to be no real logic as to why one person is paying double what somebody else is paying. And I would believe that rates, and they do this in Australia, that rates need to be a function of the business. So if there's a business there, and if there's a business working, they pay a percentage of their turnover in rates, and it's agreed across different industry sectors because different industries have different types of profit margins, etc. But I think rates then, and I think there should be, I personally think that when it comes to empty units, those 106 units that I'm talking about, I believe there should be a tax on those empty properties. So if you want to keep a property and you want to keep it boarded up, then you're going to pay a tax on it. And I think these are the kind of things that we have to think somewhat radically here, because tipping around and talking to county councillors and politicians and looking at the scale of the destruction and the devastation that we already have, it's going to take too long. So radical stuff needs to happen here. And I would be of the view that they're the kind of things that absolutely need to happen. I think as well, we need to get creative. This guy is a plumber, you know. AIM has nothing to do with the toilets. But if he passed you on the street, you might just remember who he was or what he was. So my view of the world is this: that we societally, we have to look at what we want, number one, and what is it that we want. And I think from what I could hear this morning here, the voices coming across were pretty unanimous in what's required. Number two, we've got to do something about it. And we've got to, you know, I think lobbying politicians and all that, it just takes forever. I think we've really got to push hard about, because I can tell you that places like Dundee, places like Thurles, places like Templemore, you know, what are they going to be like in 10 or 15 years' time? What do we want our kids growing up in? What type of urban landscape do we want for them? And that's why I think that if we don't take some kind of radical action here, and I also think there's another one, and then again, they were very quick to come up with tax incentives for developers during the boom times. I think there should be massive tax incentives for people to live over shops, for people to do up shop fronts. Really, the government should be paying for that. And I think anything that can give business a competitive advantage in those kind of scenarios so that they will survive and thrive can only be good. So I'd like to thank you for listening to my rant. I really appreciate being here with you today, and I am passionate about this issue, let me tell you. So thank you very much again.